Oh, y'all know the saying, you can never judge a book by its cover? Well, I got a story for you, man, that perfectly fits that. During my knucklehead days, man, I was locked up. Um, I was actually at a camp, man. Now, a camp, for you all that don't know, it's like a low level prison. They actually don't even call it a prison, they call it a correctional facility. But nevertheless, you locked up. And where I'm in Kentucky. So the camps here, as long as you have 48 months or less to see the parole board or to serve out, you can be at a camp. Um, Now, typically, if you come in with something violent like murder, assault, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that, you probably done started out at an actual prison, medium security, and then you done worked your way down over the years to where you're able to go to a camp. You know, they consider a camp a privilege. Um, But I don't know. A lot of people, to me, they prefer to be behind the fence. A camp doesn't have a fence. But nevertheless, man, one day I was in the dorm. Now the dorms that we have, they're like army barracks. So they're like open bays, just like an army barracks, with bunk beds or whatever. There was a guy, man. His name was Steve. We'll just call him Steve. Steve was sitting on his bunk, not bothering anybody, man. Now you have it's kind of like you have cubicles. So you'll have two beds on one side, a lower bunk and a top bunk, two beds on the other side, lower bunk, top bunk. You have two lockers, and you'll have like a table that everybody shares. Steve was sitting on his bunk, man, not bothering nobody. He was talking to a couple of guys, just talking. A young dude comes in. We'll call him Twan. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it was really his name, but we'll call him Twan. Nevertheless, he came in from the weight pile, so he's pumped. He got his wife beater on, so he's flexing, he's jumping around. He's hyped. Like I said, he just came from the weight pile. Well, Steve is sitting there, and it just happened to be Steve's birthday, so he had bought him a cheesecake. In prison, you can buy like the little cheap cheesecakes, you know what I'm saying? And you make them or whatever. They ain't homemade cheesecakes, but it does. It'll definitely do the job. So he's sitting there, he's enjoying his cheesecake. Well, he's about to enjoy his cheesecake. So Twan comes in, he was like, "What's up, man? Let me get a piece of that cheesecake, man." Steve's like, "Man, it's my birthday, man. It's the only thing that, it's the only thing I've really been looking forward to, man. And it's not really a big cheesecake. You see what I'm saying? So it's basically made for one person." So, he tells him in a nice way, like, "Nah, man, this is it's a one man cheesecake." You know what I'm saying? That's what you tell somebody in prison when they, "Let me get a piece of that, man. It's a one-man meal, man." You know what I'm saying? That means it ain't a lot. It's a one-man meal. I'm by, smashes on my own. So, he tells him very politely, like, "Man, I'm gonna eat my cheesecake on my own, man. But, on the next one, I got you." So Twan is probably maybe 23, 24 at the time. Steve had to have been about 40. He was a white guy, probably about 5'10", 5'11". And Steve walked like he had a hunch in his back. So he didn't stand straight up. When he walked, he kind of was hunched over. Just a little bit, not too much. And like I said, Twan was a young, arrogant, flamboyant dude, claimed he had money. He was always on the phone. He was always going to commissary, ordering $100 a week. So he was kind of flamboyant. So he's asking, he asked a couple times. So Steve's like, "Nah, man, I just told you, man, I'm gonna eat my cheesecake. I'll get you on the next one, man." So next thing I know, Twan comes over to Steve, takes his finger and sticks it in the middle of his cheesecake. When he sticks it in the middle of his cheesecake, the cheesecake quite naturally is on his finger. So, he takes it, he's licking his finger or whatever. So Steve is just looking at him like, brother, why did you do that? Why would you stick your finger in my cheesecake, man? So Twan, man, what you gonna do about it? You know what I'm saying? Do something. If I did something wrong, that was another dumb jail saying that if I did something wrong, make my mouth bleed. My mouth ain't bleeding. So evidently I ain't do nothing wrong. You could just see the disappointment on Steve's face, man, because he's sitting on his bunk. He's not bothering anybody. He's happy that it's his birthday. Happy days in prison, they don't come very often, man. And then like I said, man, he's not bothering anybody. So he tells Twan, he says, listen, man, I hate the fact that you did that. But I tell you what, man, if you wanted the cheesecake that bad, go ahead and take the cheesecake, man. I'll just get me another one. You can have the cheesecake. So Twan is steadily running his mouth. That's what I thought. You ain't gonna do nothing. Blah, 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 blah. So Steve is like, listen, brother, I don't want no trouble with you, man. I'm trying to go home. I'm sure you trying to go home. The last thing I want to do is catch a write-up, Twan steadily running. I should have been home, bitch. Bitch, I ain't where the bitch. So he starts calling Steve all type bitches. So Steve is still just sitting there. You can tell that he's contemplating, but he's kind of looking around like, please let this guy just leave me alone, man. I just want to do my time so that I can make it home to my family. Well, Twan's jumping around or whatever. Steve's like, please back up, man. You invading my space. You too close, man. Please back up. Once again, Twan, bitch, my mouth ain't bleeding. If you, say he goes through all that dumbass penitentiary terminology. Finally, Steve had enough. Steve stands up. Now, when he stands up, he doesn't necessarily, how like two boxers, two people's going to fight, they don't square off. He just stands up and he's like, I'm going to ask you again. Just leave me alone, man. Man, Twan ran up on Steve again. All you seen was bop, 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 bop. Like, it was like the Matrix. Man, he hit that boy so many times. I want to say, without exaggerating, because I don't want to exaggerate, I want to say he hit that boy with about 11 or 12 piece. And what was so crazy, that every single time Steve hit Twan, you could hear it like that. That thumping noise. I'm talking about solid connections. Next thing you know, you just see blood just pouring out of Twan's nose, his mouth. Matter of fact, Steve hit him and Twan was unconscious up against the wall. Like literally standing up against the wall. If you can imagine that, he's knocked out, but he's still standing on his feet. Nobody tried to break it up because a lot of people didn't like Twan. Like I said, he was loud, young, obnoxious, disrespectful. Man, Steve hit that boy about 5 or 6 more times. Hit him, woke him up. Hit him again, went back to sleep. Hit him, woke him up. Hit him again, went back to sleep. Finally, the COs come in. He did so much damage to that boy. Now, in a fight in prison, typically when the COs come in, everybody's getting sprayed with mace. At least the people fighting anyway. They're going to come in and just spray you just on. Even if you didn't already stop. A lot of times they walk around with fire extinguishers on their hips. You know what I'm saying? COs, they really think they really doing something. They think they, real live police officers. Because that's what they really want to be. But they couldn't make to the police force, so they got to go and bully people in prison. But nevertheless, they knew that Steve didn't bother nobody. So the CO, he's talking to Steve calmly. He pulls him to the side. They don't even put him in handcuffs or anything. Man, when I tell you that this boy's face looked disfigured that fast, that fast, because you know it might take a little bit before your face starts to really swell up and you able to look at somebody and be like, man, look at his face. Man, it was so fast. It was blood everywhere. You know the little styrofoam boxes that you like get your food in? There was a styrofoam box that had fallen on the floor and it was full of blood. It was blood all on the beds. It was blood all on the floors, on the walls. It was terrible, man. I never ever seen Twine again after that. You know, you can't really believe everything that you hear in prison. You can't believe everything you hear in life, but they say that Twine had to have what you call it, a reconstructive surgery on his face. I don't know if that's the truth, but I tell you what, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. So for you young fellas that's out there, and it ain't just the young fellas, but for, you know, the guys that want to go around and acting like, you know, you can judge a book by its cover, you definitely don't want to do that, because nobody knew that Steve used to do MMA. He was a trained MMA fighter. You know, I don't know if he was necessarily a pro or anything like that, but Steve had hands. And you would look at this guy, like I said, he walked hunched over, 40-year-old white guy. And you never in a million years, I never in a million years would have thought. Because usually when somebody can fight or they got hands or they, know how to box, you'll see them on the punching bag or something. Man, you never seen the guy shadow boxing, nothing of that sort. Was the nicest guy. Give you the shirt off his back. Just that particular day, man, he wanted his cheesecake. So like I said, man, hopefully this has taught somebody something. Mind your business, especially in prison. Because you never know what that guy may know. So hopefully this will help you. And until next time, I think I'm going to go eat me a piece of cheesecake.